To hold a meeting with the Lakers minority owners next Tuesday to elect a new board of directors and to replace Jeanie Buss, their sister. Lawyers for Jeanie Buss challenged the motion in Los Angeles Superior Court on Friday by filing a temporary restraining order, saying the Buss brothers' actions were continuing to breach their duties by challenging her controlling ownership. So the Buss brothers with an attempted coup of Jeanie. Stephen A., what are we seeing here? What we're seeing here is the fact that Jim Buss just got exposed, even more so. He's revealed that he's willing to sacrifice Laker Nation and the Lakers franchise for his own selfish motives, to a degree with his brother Johnny. Now, some people might sit up there and find, listen, I don't know Johnny from a can of paint. I don't know Jim either. I know Jeanie a little bit. I've talked to Jim on a couple occasions, met him. Seemed like a relatively nice guy. I just view him to be incredibly inept at the job of running basketball operations, because most importantly, he never really wanted the job. He was involved with horses, for crying out loud, before he did get, it's literally the truth. He was messing with horses, and then, Dr. Buss wanted him to have control of basketball operations for the Los Angeles Lakers, and he wanted Jeanie to control the business side. But what this comes down to is what I've said all along, Max. My issue with Jim Buss has never been about his competency in terms of being a basketball mind. My problem is that he was more interested in doing things his way and getting things his way, usurping and compromising the authority of his sister, and trying to do things that affected his own ego, rather than doing what's in the best interest of the Lakers franchise. Listen, the dad clearly states he wanted Jeanie to be the boss. He wanted his son to have basketball operations, but he wanted Jeanie to be the boss. She is the person that shows up every year to the league's board of governor meetings. She has the controlling interest in the franchise. It's documented. It's been understood. I don't care about all of these votes that need to take place, with another one scheduled for what is it, March or May, whatever date it is. I don't give a damn. It does not matter.
Dr. Buss's intentions were clear.
Dr. Buss's intentions were clear. He wanted Jeanie to run the franchise. He wanted his son to handle basketball-related matters because he wanted him to have something to do with the franchise. He clearly did not want her authority usurped by his son, because if that were the case, he would have gave it to his son to begin with. So knowing what your daddy's wishes are, knowing that it's been well documented and well chronicled, knowing that you're members of the board of directors because your family makes up 66% of the vote, and obviously you voted her in, to have control all of these years, for you to compromise it now in the immediate aftermath of being let go as head of basketball operations, one or two things are going on here. You want control, or you want to make sure Magic doesn't get it, because Magic's got the job that you have. So essentially what you're doing, what you're willing to say is that this is us. This is our family. I don't give a damn about the Lakers. Now, it would be tolerable if the Lakers were winning, because if you're winning, then we're just talking business here. But no, this is not just business. This is far more than just business, because you've compromised one of the greatest franchises in the history of sports with your personal, juvenile nonsense. And that's what has to be. I'll let you go ahead, Max, but that's what needs to be said here.
Or, I have an alternate theory, but first let me say I think there are two major questions here. One, when Dr. Buss left the team to his family, the question was because Jim was very publicly given control of basketball operations. And the question in some quarters, and I also wondered at the time, was it sexist, essentially, that Dr. Buss, who was a playboy, I apologize, the late, great Dr. Jerry Buss, the greatest owner in the history of American team sports, but he was notoriously that way.
He didn't mind. He didn't mind everybody knowing it.
Was there some kind of chauvinistic kind of impulse to leave the basketball team with his son? And then it was revealed, no, the business is left with the daughter, with Jeanie, who's really the chip off the old block, according to everyone, basically. And that was important because she's actually the boss. So I would say, no, that's not what happened. One. The next question is, might some of the siblings want to sell the team? Because let's not forget that the Lakers were valued under $1 billion, as most NBA teams were when Dr. Buss passed. Then the Clippers was sold for multiple billions. The Clippers. who are not nearly as valuable a franchise as the Lakers. Of a worse deal with Staples.
The little brother in
They get the Wednesday games. You know, like the Lakers have all the best dates. The Lakers are the premier franchise around the globe in the history of, you know, of basketball. They're the #1 franchise. Most glamorous team. They're worth billions and billions. Three. Well, if Forbes says 3, it's sometimes 6. Like, they tend to undersell that. So if you're a Buss sibling, Stephen A., this is not some faceless corporation. This is the primary business of the family, and you think you can cash out to the tune, your share of maybe $500 million? Might some of those siblings want to cash out? And I think that's why Dr. Buss left the team to Jeanie, because Jeanie feels a Lakers loyalty that her father felt. And I think he felt that under her stewardship, maybe the team wouldn't be sold, and maybe that's some of what's going on.
Let me tell you what I've heard. Let me tell you what I've heard throughout my years covering the Lakers, especially over the last 2 to 3 years, you know, being connected to some folks out there. Certainly, there are some members in the family that want to sell the team. You're absolutely right about that. And obviously, if you get 66% of the franchise and it's worth anywhere from $3 to $6 billion, you know, you're talking about they bought the team for over $100 million. You know the kind of money that they could get. I mean, they've been talking about selling the team. They've been
set up for generations.
There are individuals within the family that have contemplated selling the team since Ballmer came along. When he bought the Clippers for $2 billion, that elevated the franchise, every NBA franchise, you know, league-wide. I mean, when you buy for $2 billion, all of a sudden, that raises the value exponentially. Having said all of that, Jim Buss doesn't get away. Johnny might get away with that because, again, he's in the background. He's got something to do with it, but it could be a business decision with him and everybody else. But as it pertains to Jim Buss, oh, no, because you were perfectly happy with the team when you were running basketball operations. And this franchise, by the way, you sat up there and said all you needed was 1, but you asked for 3 years. And she gave you 4. And each single year, they have stunk. And so as a reality, the value of this, not the value of the franchise monetarily, but in terms of the respect that it garnered, the Lakers are a laughing stock. You got free agents that have gone there, and literally Jeanie and Jim have been on opposite sides of the gymnasium, not even near one another. There was talk about how they hadn't spoken since November 1st before Magic just was brought on board. You got all of this nonsense going on in Los Angeles with this franchise. Free agents know all of this. Their agents know all of this. It makes you very, very unattractive.
No one wants to be a part of that dysfunction.
And so bringing Magic in, now all of a sudden you got players and their agents picking up the phone and dialing the Lakers office again. And still Jim Buss wants to get in the way when Magic has the opportunity to elevate the franchise.
The whole point
he's willing to get in the way.
Was Dr. Buss's construction, and he was a legitimate genius. There were too many cooks in the kitchen. And what Jeanie just did is said, no, buck stops with me. Magic's going to run the show. We're going to hire Pelinka, and now there's
by the way,
a definite change of command.
And the franchise elevates. So if we sell, we all get paid, and even if we don't, we're still going to make money, and we'll share in that as well. But that's not good enough for Jim, because what Jim wants is what Jim wants, not what's best for the Lakers.
And that's clearly what we're seeing with this move, or attempted move, rather. What do the Redskins do with a coach that has no playoff wins and a record that is 5 games under 500? We will tell you that later in the show. And after the break, Jerry Jones is trying to find the right fit for Tony Romo. But is that fit? Weekend, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, I'm Molly.
What's up, you?
How we feeling?
How y'all doing?
There we go.
I'm good.
Right.
You forgot to mention one thing that's happening today. Rick Ross will be stopping by later. We'll get his thoughts on LeBron leaving South Beach and bringing a chip to the land.
That's right. And one thing I want to add before we start the show today, off the week, because I'm in a good mood, and I'm in good spirits, and I want to be nice. Now, when I mention Glenn Robinson, that usually creates controversy because our history with one another. But he got a son that plays for the Indiana Pacers that hit a big-time shot to win the game. So I want to take a moment to give love to a Glenn Robinson.
And he was in the stands.
That's not the original one.
No. He's clearly done a good job as a daddy. Ain't no question about that. Son showed up. I liked him at Michigan. I like what I'm seeing from him at the Pacers. I'm just in a good mood.
Stephen A., giving props, being the bigger man.
Just wanted to do that.
We love it.
To do that.
You know who's not being the bigger man? That'd be Mark Cuban. So Russell Westbrook and the Thunder were in Dallas yesterday, where Mark Cuban and the Mavs got the best of them. Pre-game, Cuban stirred the pot a little, saying the MVP battle, it's a toss-up between James Harden and LeBron James, with Kawhi Leonard also deserving of mention in that conversation, and making it clear that Westbrook is not in the mix based on his criteria. Now, the Thunder are 35-28 and are on pace to fall short of 50 wins, which Cuban considers the benchmark for a player to be considered a superstar, much less an MVP candidate. That is his criteria. Max Kellerman, is he right?
No, he's wrong. Russell Westbrook is clearly a superstar. In fact, he was a superstar when Mark Cuban made the comment last year. And I understand. Look, let's start with this. Okay. The man is averaging a triple-double. Season's 3 quarters over, the man's averaging a triple-double. For a winning team in the Western Conference, that's a whole lot without another go-to scorer on the team. That is a whole lot.
But he's not a superstar.
Now, right. Now, when Oscar Robertson did it in 1962, which is the last time it was done, triple-double for an entire season, should Westbrook do it, and he's close, the pace of the game was much faster. There were many more possessions. And so it was easier to accomplish. That's the reason it hasn't been done for so long, and Westbrook is doing it now for a winning team in the Western Conference, clearly a superstar. Why is Mark Cuban doing this? He's trapped by his own logic. 50 wins and a playoff series win. He hasn't done it yet, therefore not a superstar. But why does Cuban choose to be trapped by his own logic publicly, Stephen A? Look, it's called trolling nowadays, right? And Cuban's basically admitting to as much. But back in the old days, when Muhammad Ali would talk about Joe Frazier or Rowdy Roddy Piper would talk about Hulk Hogan, it was called showmanship or show business. And that's essentially, we just call it trolling now, and it sounds worse. But that's what Cuban's doing, and he's admitting to it. What fun would it be if I took it back now? That's all that's going on.
You're probably right, because here's the deal. The Dallas Mavericks have the worst offense in basketball. Let's put that in. And their leading scorer is Harrison Barnes, who was like a 4th or 5th wheel on the Golden State Warriors last year. So we got to take all those things into consideration when we look at the Dallas Mavericks. But I'm going to say this. Here's where you and I are going to disagree. You dismiss it, out of hand, simply as trolling or whatever. Russell Westbrook is a top 2 league MVP candidate, and he is a superstar in this league, no question. But I do think that it's difficult to summarily dismiss what Mark Cuban is saying, because what Mark Cuban is doing is something that I've done on numerous occasions in the past, Max. I have categorized and challenged others to define and characterize what a true superstar was. Yeah. Max and I have talked about the name Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin is not a superstar to me. He is not a superstar. He is a star, but he is not a superstar. Melo is a superstar offensive talent, but he's not a superstar the likes of LeBron and others. These are the kind of things that I have paid attention to. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I think about a guy like Russell Westbrook, and even though I think Mark Cuban is wrong, I appreciate while Mark Cuban is wrong about Russell Westbrook, I like where he went when he tried to classify and define what a true superstar should be. He talked about winning 50 games, at least. Why are we talking about you if you're 42-40 or something like that? That's a big deal. I can respect that. I take into account box office, because you know what that means to me. You got to have some box office swag if your name ain't Tim Duncan, or in this day and age, Kawhi Leonard. If you ain't one of those two individuals, you ain't playing for Grand San Antonio Spurs, you got to have some box office appeal. I also have to look at your efficiency. Russell Westbrook is averaging 31, 10, and 10. But when you shoot 42% from the field, and other candidates we're talking about are at 49, 52, 53%, well, then we got a different argument there. So we got to take all of those things into consideration. If you're Mark Cuban, I can understand people getting on them, and I think we've gotten to a point where we got to start asking questions about the Dallas Mavericks, because I'm a fan of Mark Cuban. I like Mark Cuban a great deal.